everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to share a powerful English story written especially for learners at the B2 level, upper intermediate. This story is based on 30 years of real experience teaching English at universities in the United States. It's not just a lesson, it's a reflection on what it really means to learn English, the challenges students face all over the world, and how we can overcome them. If you're learning English and want to improve your listening, understanding, and motivation, this video is for you. So sit back, take a deep breath, and let's begin. Title: The Reality of Learning English Around the World. After 3 decades of teaching English at universities across the United States, I've had the privilege of meeting students from all corners of the world, each with their own dreams, hopes, and fears. Some picked up English quickly, speaking fluently after just a few years of study. Others struggled for decades and still couldn't bring themselves to speak a full sentence aloud. That contrast isn't always about intelligence or effort. It's about something much bigger: the way English is being taught and learned around the globe. English today is more than a language. It's a key to opportunity, to information, to global citizenship. It's become essential in education, business, science, and even everyday survival. And yet, despite this urgent need, the way most people learn English remains outdated, inefficient, and at times disheartening. I once had a student from South Korea who had studied English for over 12 years. She aced the TOEFL exam, knew thousands of vocabulary words, and could write perfect essays. But when she had to speak in front of the class for the first time, she froze. Her voice trembled, her eyes filled with tears, and she barely managed to get through the sentence. That's not a failure of her intelligence, it's a failure of the system. In many Asian countries, Vietnam, China, Japan, students often learn English as if it were math or history. Memorize vocabulary, study grammar rules, take endless tests. The focus is on passing exams, not on using the language in real life. The result? Students with high scores but low confidence. They can analyze a text but not hold a conversation. In contrast, in countries like the Netherlands or Sweden, children grow up watching English language shows without dubbing. They sing along to English songs and use the internet in English every day. Their English becomes a natural part of life, not a subject to fear. It's not that they are more gifted, it's that they're exposed to the language in context. Africa presents a different story. In many African nations, English is one of the official languages. Yet students face immense challenges: lack of access to resources, few trained teachers, and limited immersion. But what's always inspired me is their hunger to learn. I've met students who taught themselves English using old books and mobile phones, practicing with anyone who would listen. They didn't have much, but they had the fire. In Latin America, the problem is inconsistency. Students in countries like Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia often start learning English in elementary school. But poor planning, teacher shortages, and constant curriculum changes make progress difficult. I once asked a student from Colombia how long he had studied English. "Since 3rd grade," he said, "but I still can't speak it." That's not uncommon. What I've seen around the world is that millions of students are spending years learning English and still can't use it. They're exhausted, frustrated, and confused. Why? Because they're learning the wrong way. Some think that if they just memorize enough words, they'll become fluent. But language isn't about how much you know, it's about what you can do. I've seen people who knew thousands of words but still couldn't hold a conversation. Others believe they need to sound like native speakers to be understood. That's a dangerous myth. I've taught students who refused to speak because they were ashamed of their accent. They didn't realize that English is a global language with countless accents, even within native-speaking countries. Clarity is what matters, not perfection. Some students just listen to English thinking that listening alone will help them speak. That's like sitting in a kitchen every day and expecting to become a chef without ever cooking. You need to speak. You need to try. You need to make mistakes. The fear of making mistakes is one of the biggest barriers I see. Students are terrified of being laughed at or judged. But learning a language is messy. You have to stumble, you have to fall. That's how you learn to walk. I always tell my students, if you make 10 mistakes today, you'll make 9 tomorrow. That's progress. Cultural expectations also play a role. In many Eastern cultures, speaking up is seen as disrespectful or boastful. Children are taught to stay quiet and listen. That mindset often follows them into language learning, making them reluctant to speak up, even when they know the answer. In today's world, we have more tools than ever to learn English. Apps, websites, online tutors, you name it. But with too many options, students often feel lost. They jump from one app to another, from one YouTube channel to another, without a clear plan. And in the end, they still can't speak. So, what's the solution? First, you need a clear reason to learn. Do you want to study abroad, get a better job, watch movies without subtitles? Once you know your why, your path becomes clearer. Second, follow the natural order: listening, speaking, reading, writing. Just like babies do, don't rush to grammar rules before you can understand a simple sentence. Third, create an environment where English is a living language, not just a classroom subject. Speak with friends, write a journal, watch shows, join English-speaking communities. Make English part of your daily life. Fourth, learn through what you love. If you love football, read football news in English. If you love music, study the lyrics. Passion will keep you going long after discipline runs out. And most importantly, find someone who believes in you. A mentor, a teacher, a friend. It doesn't have to be a native speaker, it just has to be someone who sees your potential and helps you unlock it. Over the years, I've seen miracles. A single mother in the Philippines learned English to help her child study. A boy in Rwanda learned English with an old mobile phone and now works as a UN translator. A farmer in Thailand learned English through YouTube so he could talk to tourists. These people didn't have privilege, but they had purpose. English is not a destination. It's a journey. And like any journey, it takes time, patience, and faith. If you walk this path with an open heart, if you practice without fear, and if you keep showing up even when it's hard, you'll get there. I promise you. One day, English will not be something you study. It will be something you live. I remember once sitting in a quiet corner of a campus in Illinois, watching an international student pacing back and forth. He was mumbling to himself, practicing what he would say during his class presentation. I recognized the look on his face, half determination, half fear. When I approached and asked how he was doing, he said something I've never forgotten. I've studied English all my life, but it never felt like mine. That's the root of the struggle for many learners around the world. English feels like a borrowed suit, something they put on for exams or interviews, but not something they truly live in. It feels foreign. And that psychological distance is what holds them back more than grammar or vocabulary ever could. In my experience, the key to bridging that distance is ownership. When a student begins to feel that English belongs to them, not to the UK, not to the US, but to them, everything changes. Their confidence grows, their creativity awakens, their fear fades. I've seen it in a Vietnamese student who began writing poetry in English to express feelings she couldn't say in her native language. I saw it in a Syrian refugee who taught his younger siblings English using children's books he found at a donation center. I saw it in an elderly grandmother in Brazil who learned English in her 70s to write emails to her grandson studying abroad. Language, at its core, is not about rules. It's about connection. It's about saying, I see you, I hear you, I understand you. When learners begin to feel that English allows them to connect, not just perform, they begin to truly learn. Too often, we judge learners by the wrong metrics. We ask, can you pass the test? Instead of, can you tell your story? We celebrate perfect grammar and ignore powerful ideas. But I'd rather listen to a broken sentence filled with heart than a perfect one without soul. The truth is, English is no longer owned by native speakers. It belongs to everyone. Today, most conversations in English happen between people for whom it is a second language. A Japanese engineer speaking with an Indian colleague, a Nigerian entrepreneur writing to a German investor, a Turkish student chatting with a Korean friend online. English is the bridge, and no one controls the bridge anymore. That shift changes everything. It means that having an accent doesn't make you less. It makes you real. It means that imperfect English is still powerful. It means that your story matters, even if you tell it with simple words. I've taught students who spoke 5 languages fluently but doubted themselves because their English wasn't native enough. What a tragedy. What a waste of talent. We need to teach students that fluency is not the same as perfection, that making mistakes is not failure, it's progress. One of my proudest moments as a teacher came during a speaking workshop. A student from Ethiopia stood up and gave a short talk about his journey to the US. His grammar wasn't perfect, his pronunciation was rough, but when he finished, the room was silent. Then everyone stood and applauded, not because his English was flawless, but because his heart was in it. He was brave, it was honest, and he was understood. Isn't that the whole point? Somewhere along the way, we've confused the goal of language learning. We treat English like a code to be cracked rather than a voice to be found. But students don't need more drills. They need more conversations. They don't need more fear. They need more freedom. That's why I encourage learners to speak early, even when they feel unready. I tell them, speak now, speak wrong, just speak. Because confidence doesn't come from waiting until you're perfect. It comes from using what you have, imperfectly, courageously, consistently. I've seen too many brilliant students silenced by shame. A slip in pronunciation, a wrong verb tense, one bad comment from a classmate, and they retreat. I've seen them write beautifully, then say nothing in class. That silence kills potential. But I've also seen transformation. I've watched quiet students come alive when asked to tell a story from their childhood. I've watched skeptical learners fall in love with English after watching a movie that moved them. I've watched fear turn into joy when English stopped being a burden and became a gift. That transformation doesn't require expensive courses or moving abroad. It begins with mindset. You have to stop saying, I'm bad at English, and start saying, I'm learning. You have to stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself the right to speak, to write, to try. Your English doesn't have to be perfect to matter. It just has to be yours. Every learner has their own mountain to climb. Some have to overcome lack of access. Some have to overcome trauma or self-doubt. Some simply have to find the right method. But all of them need one thing above all: belief. Belief in themselves. Belief that they are capable. Belief that their voice matters, even in a foreign language. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever felt discouraged, let me say this clearly. Your English is good enough to begin. You are smart enough to grow. You are brave enough to continue. No matter your age, your background, or your mistakes, your journey is valid, and it's far from over. I don't care how long you've been studying. I don't care how many times you failed. I care that you're still trying. That makes you a success in my book. Because the truth is, English isn't just about words. It's about windows. Every new word opens a window into another world. Every sentence you speak opens a door to new friendships, new ideas, new dreams. In my 30 years as a teacher, I've never seen 2 students walk the same path. Some raced ahead, some crawled. But the ones who made it all shared one thing: they kept going. And if you keep going, no matter how slowly, you will get there too. Thank you for listening. I hope this story gave you something to think about and the courage to keep learning. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.